Okay, great, thanks. Mr. Singer, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll get to say some kind words about some great Boca contributors once again. Penn, Florida, and moreover its principal, Mr. Mark Gensheimer, have been great contributors to Boca Raton. If we knew for sure that they would own this land forever, most of my concerns would be alleviated. If we knew that the project would reflect the artistry of Mr. Heaps, many of my concerns would be reduced. But we can't assume that. This poorly crafted ordinance relies on the residents trusting a potential group of future unknown developers. Trust that they will build a plan anything like these beautiful renderings. Trust that they won't swap out hundreds of thousands of square feet in terms of other uses. Trust that their rosy traffic projections won't be irrelevant because they're right to change the mix of uses. For decades, the residents of Boca Raton have put their trust in their elected leaders to carefully control the scope and scale of development and the strict appearance, look, and feel of Boca Raton. This body would not earn this trust by saying yes to this legislation. This outlandish proposal would drastically expand the generous development rights and virtually create a sovereign nation in the center of Boca Raton. These land use regulations are dramatically different from anything this city has ever seen fit to allow. My questions to staff and the applicant were to highlight the gaping holes that would let these property owners receive 500,000 square feet of additional developable rights worth tens of millions of dollars with very little oversight, and less oversight than currently exists under the PM.25 or has ever existed in Boca Raton. I've spent dozens of hours trying to get to the heart of the many reams of paper that constitute these ordinances and changes. That's why my questions were rather extensive. And here's the heart of it. First, this is not a traditional master plan. These plans are one idea that a developer can basically reject at will. These plans are not part of the ordinance. I was pleased to hear Mr. Siemens' comment a moment ago and hope that we can somehow incorporate these renderings into the plan. But still, that's not a traditional master plan, and I'll look to the city attorney to see what we can do to follow up on that concern. Any allocation of uses within the different pods can still be allowed. We could swap hundreds of thousands of square feet for residential, for retail, for office, and back and forth, limited only by a traffic projection. I asked, through city staff, to ask the proponent here to confirm that the mix in uses and percentages that were depicted in the plan would remain under the same standard as currently exists under PM.25. They declined. The developer originally said that they would not agree to keep the existing criteria, the 7 criteria we discussed at length for review of the site plans. During the break, and I'll ask again the city attorney to coordinate with petitioner on this, Mr. Seaman indicated that they would be willing to keep those criteria. That's better, but still not enough. The criteria still allows a liberal swapping of uses, much more liberal than the current standard. I think that alone might end the discussion. But 2, this upzoning is based on the use of a traffic study, something we've never done. The developer has allowed just as many trips as they have now under .25. Any reduction in trips is an illusion because there is nothing binding them to reduce trips. My last exchange with Mr. Seaman confirmed that. And Mr. Seaman did comment, he said, nothing in the traffic changes except it goes down. I beg to differ. Nothing in the traffic changes, period. We don't know whether it's going to go down, but we do know that nothing changes because it's almost certain that they will increase the trips to meet what was there. And fundamentally, we have an issue because it's a 2013 traffic study. We're using data that's 2 years old. Yes, it does forecast the growth of the FAU interchange. But I still have a great hesitancy in approving something that we know is not even current today. The traffic study also may omit restaurant trips. We had the exchange with Mr. Donaldson. And yes, there a certain number of restaurant trips is included in inline residential or inline retail. But this plan is not, again, part of this. So you could have out parcels with considerably more trips. That may impact what the developer builds, but that also may spill over. And what's the significance to all of us? If the projections are erroneous, there's more traffic. And that impacts everyone. That impacts you as taxpayers. That impacts you, the city, as Boca Raton property owners for all the land that we own at Hornley Park. There are minor issues like the turn lane is not included in the plan, and I think we can address that. But more fundamentally, in the past, we've considered the amount of development in the context of a variety of factors, more than just are there enough trips externally. We've considered mix of uses. We've considered how it complements the area. We considered what we want to attract. This parcel needs development. It can be, and I hope will be, the north entrance to FAU and the research park. I hope it will provide an exciting mix of uses that will complement FAU, that will lure businesses here, that will lure amenities, lure attractions, and improve the quality of life. But it will still be that even under 0.25, the existing regulations. If we're going to permit a massive increase in development, I think we should consider more than an outdated traffic study that says they might be able to cram in more buildings. The precedent of considering more development based on traffic has major implications for the rest of the city. Mr. Seaman did say that the 0.04 is necessary to create a sense of place to achieve the objectives of planned mobility. If that's the case, I'd like to see more. I'd like to see that everything sketched out here with a beautiful circle downtown, or in this mini downtown, reminiscent of some of the northern cities, with a traffic circulator, with a point of access that we discussed extensively at the first meeting when this was heard, would actually be in the plan. It's not required. If we adopt this type of regulation, every developer would seek to propose a plan like this by claiming that we're getting less traffic, then change the mix of uses, increase the traffic to the prior level, and obtain more rights, leaving us subject to the accuracy of estimates. As I said, there are already extensive rights on this parcel, including an allocation of open space that was probably not the best idea when granted. Now, the developer would say that council members approved these rights in 2013, and that's true. But in doing so, the prior council wrongly relinquished some of the oversight and input that residents have traditionally had. I don't want to compound this error with this plan. We have an allocation of open space throughout the property that's reminiscent of other places, in particularly the Mark project. I don't want to create that mistake again. I want to ensure a more equal allocation of open space. I want to ensure that if we're promised 37% open space, that we're not subject to staff review of a series of projects that whittle that down to a number that's actually 25%. I've tried to fix some of these errors with the revisions that were sent over to the petitioner. They have agreed to some, but not others. I don't think that we have enough assurances to save this proposal. But if the council is going to adopt it and yielding to the petitioner's request, I implore that we consider greater protections than we have here, along the lines of the ones I've just mentioned and other council members have mentioned. I just pause to ask, would we allow this type of development downtown? Would we allow a single developer to say 500,000 square feet with a malleable mix of uses is acceptable? I've heard from a number of downtown residents, and they're aghast at a concept of far less development, far less rights, far less interchangeability. This is a city where we've traditionally required that some restaurant uses over 1,000 square feet required a public hearing to go forward. We're talking about 1.3 million square feet. We're talking at about an additional 500,000 square feet that I submit has less oversight than we've traditionally had. If the applicant would like to submit a master plan that's consistent with our concept of traditional master plans and not a hybrid of PMD master plan based on a hybrid mix of uses, based on malleability, and then demonstrate how that master plan over the next decade with a specific defined mix of uses would benefit our city and justify the increase in square footage, I'd be all ears. Or if they do so tonight and submit a far more binding plan than this rough sketch, I'd be happy to consider it as well. But it's not the case. Make no mistake, Approving this type of malleable zoning will easily be one of the most significant moments in land use in our city's history. I truly hope the developer fulfills this rosy picture. If not, those voting for it may decades down the line regret this decision. And for those reasons, I can't support this, but I urge the council to get as much protection as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or more importantly, reject it. Thank you.
Mr. Singer, we're not going to have that.